some of the younger people are just switched off on the idea of buying property.
They can't save. It's impossible to save. It's like, well, it is possible if you're not prioritizing traveling. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But don't say that it's impossible to save money, because you could just choose to do other things.
But to get your house, nowhere near as tough
Yeah.
as today. Nowhere near as tough. Food mud. Is it good to be on this side?
Yeah, a bit like nervous. Hey?
Have you been on this side of the camera since your acting debut in
Mr. In Between? No. Oh, like just done YouTube stuff since then, but not like.
You were on this side of the camera.
Yeah, because I was doing like YouTube stuff
What,
before.
fighting, like this is how you do.
Oh no, I didn't. I don't think I had any.
This is how we do it.
I watched the whole.
Well, you can barely
season
see me.
three.
Yeah.
Like it's.
What was it? The last episode of season 3?
Saw that screenshot
Second
though
last.
that you sent through where he's at
Yeah.
the bar, right?
No, we were behind. Where were you? In like a shed
He's sitting.
It was in this like.
warehouse,
No, it was like a barn
a barn.
shed thing. Yeah,
Was
yeah.
it
They
in
had
Sydney?
to stop filming. Yeah, like around Blacktown.
Oh, okay.
But the screenshot you sent was him sitting at a bar.
No, it was behind like a table of some kind.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we were packing like fake. Well, I hope they were fake, like bricks of coke,
Oh.
coke into tires. That's what. Yeah, that's how they paid us. We didn't actually get cash. They just
Great
gave us
show,
money.
Mr. In Between. Or like, I would say like best Aussie show of all
Ever,
time.
ever.
But
yeah.
like it's next level. Like I would think
It is very good.
Like internationally one of the best shows
Yeah,
of all time.
so
So
good.
good.
Yeah, it was good.
Highly recommend it if you like Sopranos and stuff like that.
Well, The
Mr. In
Sopranos kids are like big fans of that show.
Yeah, I heard they were on a podcast together. They interviewed him. And it was funny because they were like, oh, I wonder if it's really him because there's not much about him online.
Yeah,
and then he was like, oh, I was wondering if it's really you guys because I'm such a big fan of Sopranos. But a lot of inspiration there. Our podcast is inspired by property conversations. Are we starting? Have we started?
Does it all sound good, Archie? Probably should have checked that. Okay, man.
It's been a little while since we've been in front of the cameras and in front of the mics, but we're back. Like I said, inspired by property conversations. Imagine like the convos you have with your mates. They always end up being about property, and we're just bringing that to the podcast format. So it's Property Now, brought to you by Coposit. I'm Michael Carboni. You can call me Carbs. And here once again with Jason He, the He-Man.
So good to be back.
Good to have, mate. How incredible. Where have we been?
I've no idea.
It's like we just disappeared off the
I
face
thought
of
I
the
got
earth for 2 or
fired.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just didn't tell you. We were
That's
recording.
what I thought.
we were
And I thought it'd be
recording every
awkward
week.
to ask about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was a touchy subject.
No,
so
we
I just
couldn't-
let it go.
We couldn't do it without you. And another person we couldn't do it without is actually PJ. Welcome.
Thanks, man.
Normally on the other side of the camera,
Mm-hmm.
normally the producer of this whole show. We've got you here for a good reason. You're also the producer of what is now our famous TikTok and Instagram account, Coposit Street.
Yeah, man.
So Coposit Street for anyone that's not following. And if you're not following, where the fuck are you? Like definitely jump on TikTok, jump on Instagram, Coposit Street.
What are you
and
doing?
All right.
join the millions of views per day. Like I'm not even exaggerating. What's the top video? 6 million views?
Yeah, over 6. We'll see it. We'll see it.
Oh, we're going to
soon.
see it.
Spoiler.
Oh, is it our prop
Yeah,
doc?
yeah, yeah.
Mad. So PJ is the man. We hit the streets. We ask the people, mainly of Sydney, how old are you? How much do you have in savings? And a lot of people want to know that sort of information.
100%.
Why do they? Is it people just want to compare themselves, or they're just like, what's the deal?
I think it's like kind of a nosy sort of thing to ask people, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
It's
you,
like
you
taboo.
hear that, yeah,
Yeah.
you hear that, and people are like, oh, I'm curious, I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're the man behind the camera. You're editing those videos, so you get a lot of insight into what's happening on the street, not only in the studio, not only in business, what's happening on the street with all of these young, usually young Aussies, but I guess we get a range of. We've got boomers, we've got
Yeah,
Gen Z,
everyone,
all the way
all
from
age groups.
from start to finish, I want to say. But today's episode is about saving in a cost of living crisis, because obviously times are tough right now. A lot of people talking about recession, US, like things looking bleak. But we get a lot of insight on the streets from how people are saving right now, if they're saving at all. And spoiler alert, a lot of people are not saving. But I guess the question I want to start with, we did a little bit of research today. We looked at some data around, and this comes from ABS and the RBA websites as well. So compiled a whole heap of data on what things cost in 1964 versus 1994 versus today, 2024. And it's quite interesting, actually. So first, quick question, first of all. like, who do you guys? I'll start with you, Jace, actually. But who had it easier? Do you think it was adults in 1964, 1994, or today?
I think it's the 1964.
You reckon they had it easier?
Yeah, I think so.
Why is that?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think probably the population is not the size compared to 1994, 2024. And, I think it was easier to actually, achieve things like buying your first home, for example. And I think it was really common that you had one person in the family or in a household that was working full time, and you could have the other person staying at home. And you didn't even need to be earning a massive salary to be able to provide that sort of environment. I think people had more kids,
Yep.
right? The cost of living pressures is definitely not the same as it is today, right? And like if you just look at housing alone, it was much easier, even if the rates were higher, but the prices were lower, the loans were smaller. Yes, understand that the salaries are not the same as today. But even without looking at the statistics, I think everybody knows that wage growth has not kept in line with cost of living prices and property prices going up.
That's interesting. We're going to look at some numbers in a moment, and maybe we'll see if your mind has changed after we go through those numbers. What do you think, Peach? 64, 94, or 2024?
I've seen the data, so
Pretend you haven't and just tell. No, okay. So we'll reserve your comment for the end as well.
Yeah.
Okay, but so imagine. So when I think about 2024, it's us.
Mm-hmm.
It's the, younger. I'm an older millennial, but like young kids, young families, people like Peach, like starting in the workforce, haven't started your family yet. It's like this generation is us. 1994 is probably our parents, how it was for them, and 1964 is probably our grandparents and how it was for them. So I'm going to start. This reminds me a little bit of Price is Right, Larry Ebner. I don't know if you remember that show, Paige. You remember the Price is Right,
100%.
higher, lower.
Yep.
So I want to talk about the price of things in those years, right? So we're looking at Sydney prices, and when we get to 2024, we've specifically looked at Woolies website for this data. Okay, so Woolworths. All right, so shout out to Woolworths, sponsor of today's show. Not really the sponsor. So let's start with like a real basic essential that every household has.
Mm-hmm.
So you got milk. So in 1964, there was like one type of milk. It was cow's milk.
That's right.
Now there's like even almonds have milk these days.
Yep.
So there's like 100 different type of milk. We're going with the basic milk.
Yeah.
So a quart of milk in 1964 versus a litre carton of milk in 94 and 2024. How much do you think a quart of milk cost in 1964?
A what of milk?
Like a bottle of milk.
A bottle of milk?
Yeah, 1964.
20 cents.
Close. What do you reckon?
I'm going to go 15 cents.
You want 15? Well, 20 was close. It's 24 cents in 1964.
Boom.
So 1994 obviously went up.
Yep.
What do you reckon?
45 cents.
45 cents, you reckon, for
Yeah.
a litre of milk
Yeah.
in 1994. What do you reckon?
I think definitely would say 35.
It's a lot higher than both of those. You want to try again?
$1.10.
Okay.
80 cents.
Yeah. It's $1.02. So
Yeah.
milk in 64, 24 cents. 1994, $1.02. Today, your basic Woolworths brand milk. So I'm not talking about almond.
1 litre is $2.30.
So it's $1.50 at the moment for milk. But I would suggest also that might be like a special price.
Yeah.
Like honestly, and that's probably like Woolies brand 1 litre like basic milk.
Yeah, right.
So it's not your A2, which is probably like $3 something.
Yeah, at least.
It's not your
Yeah.
soy milk, which
Yeah.
is like probably $4 something. So things dramatically have increased in this time, right?
Yeah.
Instant coffee. So 1964, they didn't have instant coffee. They were drinking tea. The Italians didn't come yet to Australia. They were here, but you probably get them in like an old deli in like $5.
Yeah.
Ranieri's. 1994, instant coffee, a jar.
This is hard because I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't drink coffee. I'll
Yeah.
say like, I don't know, 30 cents.
A lot higher than that.
$4.50.
Mate, $4.49. I'll pay that. I'll pay that.
Wow.
We'll pay that one. So
Hey.
it's 2-1 if anyone's
Hey.
keeping score
How
at
come
home.
you didn't get accused of cheating when you got it?
Because I drink coffee.
'Cause he
So I
drinks
know.
coffee.
Damn.
That's a cup of coffee if you go to a cafe today, right? Instant coffee 2024, 150 gram jar. What do you reckon at Woolies?
$6.
$9.
Higher. Try again.
Higher.
Well,
Yeah, higher than 9.
12.
Yeah, lower.
11.
Yeah, 11.50 jar of coffee. Price of coffee nowadays. So I think I haven't got this stat here, but I heard like 1994 you could get a coffee at a cafe for like $3. Now it's like $6. You're
Yeah.
more close
Man,
to
I
that.
remember when they were like $2.50, but the coffee wasn't as good though.
But it's
Yeah,
on
I have
par
to
with
say.
inflation too, by the way.
Yeah.
I think if you track inflation,
Mm.
a coffee today should be $5.99, which is like $6. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
Yeah.
So like things seem much more expensive today, right?
Yeah.
But when you adjust for inflation,
Mm.
right, when you adjust all of these numbers for inflation, like so at the moment it sounds like we've got a lot harder today. But adjusted for inflation, compared to 1964, it's very much hit and miss. Some things are adjusted much more expensive in 1964 than they are today, based on wages and inflation and etc. Whereas probably half the things are more expensive today. So it just depends on what you're choosing. So
Yeah.
very similar, comparably. But 1994, adjusted for inflation and wages, that was a good time to be an adult, man. 1994, things were cheaper, people were earning more, house prices were less. So like our parents, I would suggest our parents had it easier than us, but their parents probably had it just as hard as us.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
What do you guys
That was
think?
interesting because that's what, when I initially looked at it, I would have thought what you thought, whereas the older generation would have had it much easier. So the 90s being the best, that sort of surprised me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the difference with our grandparents though is they didn't have the things that we have today. So they didn't care about the Mac Mansion, the fancy car, the iPads, the iPhones,
All the subscriptions.
all the
yeah.
subscriptions.
All- yeah,
Huge.
seriously, 'cause
Holiday. They didn't
didn't
go on
exist.
holidays.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
My wife's grandparents, they went on their honeymoon.
Yeah.
And guess where their honeymoon was? Where'd you
Copacabana in
where'd
the
you
Central
Where'd
Coast.
you go on your honeymoon? Do you remember?
Yeah, we went to Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is closer.
Sorry.
No, okay. Well, Geelong. They went to Geelong. So even Melbourne's better than Geelong. No, I don't know. Sorry, Geelong. Sorry, Geelong. But what I guess the point is they didn't really go on holidays back then.
Yeah.
All right. The Fiji trip you took with your kids, your wife and kids earlier this year, they didn't
Yeah.
go to Fiji, mate. They probably did that once in their life.
Mm.
So it was probably on par to 1964 with a lot of these things. But like, man, we've got so many more like life luxury sort of
Yeah.
expenses, which I think is a bit crazy. Do you want to keep playing a little bit? Because we got a few averages, right? And I mean, with these averages compared, we're including adjustments for inflation as well in today's figures. So like, let's talk about like weekly wages in 64, 94 and now. House prices in Sydney in 64, 94 and now. And then the interest rates in those times as well. All right, so we'll keep playing along. So 1964, the weekly wage, and this is for a male, because it was probably like as you alluded to, Jace, or single income families back
Yeah.
then. So what do you think the average wage, weekly wage, was in 1964?
$100.
$100? Lower. A lot lower than that, guys. Guess at home as well. Let us know if you're beating these guys. But Jace,
$50.
$50, a little bit higher. You're getting close. It's in the 50s.
58.
Yeah, $58.60 is the average weekly wage
Yeah, wow.
for male. Like, so that's single income families
Yeah.
bringing home $58.60 a week. Adjusted for inflation, this is the interesting part. Adjusted for inflation, $58.60 today. Do you know what that would be?
$800 a week.
More.
1,200.
It's $1,010 a week. So it's like earning $1,010 a week today.
Yeah, right.
Isn't too bad.
Yeah, it's not.
It is. It's not, well, we'll get to the average today. Let's do wages for 1964. So the weekly wage in 1994, weekly wage. I'll start with you, Peach. What do you think it was? I'll give you a clue. It's more than $58.60 a week.
Oh, it's more than that. Okay. Say like $80.
A lot
A lot higher?
A lot higher.
200.
Higher.
Well, I was thinking 200.
And he cheated.
350.
Higher.
450.
Higher.
600.
Yeah. $610.60 average wage. And by this time, there were dual income households as well. So you might have two people in the house earning $610. That's average both sexes. So the average for men was higher than that, and average for women was probably a bit lower than that, but $610. Adjusted for inflation today, $1,358 a week, usually times two. in many households.
Mm.
What's the average wage today per week? What do you reckon?
Per week?
Yeah. Average weekly wage today.
Oh, it'd be 1,500.
Higher, lower.
Higher.
1650.
Higher.
1,800?
Yeah, close. 1886 apparently today.
Oh, wow.
So you got to think 1886 today. So we do earn a little bit more comparably to 1994, which today would be $1,300, and 1964, which today would be $1,000. So almost double 1964 adjusted for inflation. But here's the killer. How much do you think a house was worth? The average Sydney house
Oh, wow.
in 1964.
$70,000. Sorry. In 1964,
64,
right?
yeah.
$25,000.
Lower.
So I'm like 20 grand.
Lower.
$7,000.
Lower.
Five grand.
Yeah. You're getting close, guys. $4,214. Now today, that'll
What,
be,
so they were earning 50 something. Oh, so they were earning $50.
they're earning $50 a week, $58 a week, one income.
So $50 a week is say $2.5 grand a year. So the house price is 2 times income.
Yeah, 2 times income, 2 times single income.
What?
Yeah, the interest rate back then was 5.1%.
Hey, lower than today.
Yeah, but that that is the might have to
Cash
edit this,
rate.
but that was a cash rate.
Oh, right. So the rate might have been
So-
8%.
Yeah, so
maybe.
higher than
Yeah.
the cash rate today.
Yeah.
5.1. So high interest rate, but the house price was 2 years of income.
Mm.
All right. If today, average Sydney house, it would be $72,000. $72,658.
Well,
According-
adjusted for
adjusted for inflation.
inflation.
That's pretty good, eh?
Yeah.
That's pretty. So again, talking about groceries, they probably had it as tough as us in 1964, but to get your house, nowhere near as tough
Yeah.
as today. Nowhere near as tough as today. 1994, the beautiful period when our parents were living it up, having parties. Sydney house price in 1994.
$100 grand.
More.
200.
A bit lower.
160.
Higher.
180.
Higher.
190.
192. 275. $192,000. If today, in today's money, it's $428,000. You could buy a house in Sydney for $428 today's money. So what's that? So the weekly wage back then was $600.
That's
You-
30 grand.
You might maybe had dual income families back then potentially.
So that's 60 grand.
And the house price is $192,000. So it's
So
three
about
times,
3 times, yeah.
household. 3 times household or 6 times
Mm.
single. It's pretty good. Interest rate not as good. Cash rate was 6.5%. This is in October 04. Yeah, not that great. Today, what do you think of Sydney?
Oh, fuck.
1 million.
It's actually higher than that now, man.
Like
The average price in Sydney.
1.2.
It's $1.2 million in Sydney. In today's money, that's $1.2 million, by the way. For anyone
Oh,
playing
wow.
at home.
Thanks for clarifying.
Damn.
And the interest rate is 4.35, the cash rate. So people are paying like, what, 6? What are people paying these days?
Yeah,
6%?
about 6.2, 6.3.
All right,
Yeah.
that makes me feel okay with my 6.04. So weekly wage, let's call it $2,000 a week wage. What's that per year? 100. Say
That's
it's
that's 100 grand. Yeah.
So it's 12 times income.
Yeah.
If it's a couple, it's probably 6 times household income.
Yeah, look, and it's interesting because the banks have a limit that even if you can service the debt, they cap it at about 6 times income. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
So really,
Yeah.
you'd need to be earning how much?
Yes. So your debt to income ratio generally can't be over 6 times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess a single person, based on that, a single person can't buy a house in Sydney today. Can't buy the average house in Sydney today.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple could.
Yep.
Yeah, most couples.
Still hard, but
Still
yeah.
difficult, but like right on the
Yeah.
threshold by the look of it. If it's 6 times income,
Yeah.
you got 2 people earning, say, 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
They can buy an average house in
That's
Sydney.
assuming no kids.
No kids, yeah. What, okay.
And no
wait.
hex.
How does the kids, so what, if you add a kid to the scenario,
Yeah.
if you have like 1, 2 or 3 kids in the scenario,
Yeah.
does that change?
Yeah, it does. It does.
What's
yeah.
the difference?
Yeah, because the living expenses goes up.
I wish you told me that. My wife's
Yeah.
having our baby in 2 weeks. I wish
That's why you
told me
bought
that.
already.
Yeah, I already bought.
Yeah,
good.
so
Locked
all
in.
good.
Done.
You planned it well.
What would the difference be normally between 1, 2,
Oh,
and
I
3
can't
kids?
recall off the top of my head, but it probably be like 30 to 50K, I'd say.
So every kid is 30 to 50K less you can borrow.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, because it really increases your monthly living expenses.
Far out,
And
yeah,
because
it
with
does.
kids comes childcare costs,
Yes.
comes schooling,
Man,
right?
I wish we had childcare costs here. I guess they probably didn't have childcares in 1964.
Didn't need it.
It was,
Yeah.
exactly, because
Yeah,
it was
'cause
like
you had one
it was
income.
One income.
Yeah.
So childcare costs in 1964 was zero.
Yeah.
Today,
Yeah.
man, I know people that are paying like
Oh, for sure.
$150 a day.
Oh, that's
Maybe it's
easy.
more than that. Maybe
Easy.
it's
180 a
180
day.
180 a
yeah.
day.
And especially if you're earning a decent income or you're both working, you don't even get much subsidy.
It's almost not worth.
So it makes you question, like, why am I even working?
Yeah.
Because most of the money's going towards childcare
yeah,
fees.
it's almost not worth
yeah,
it.
that's right.
So but we have to
Yeah.
because of our mortgages.
Yeah, 100%.
It's crazy, man. It's a lot. So again, what do we think, guys? Is it? I don't want to make this a generation debate. Maybe
Yeah.
we should have had a boomer on this episode. A boomer or Gen Z. It would have been cool, but harder for. I think it's harder today.
Oh,
Is
for
it
sure
safe
it's
to
harder
say?
today. Yeah, I mean, just on the childcare topic alone, it's harder. Yeah, it's much harder how much it costs. Yeah, with all the other living expenses added together. Yeah, it's really difficult. And that forces both parents to work.
Do you, like for someone someone that is looking to get into the market, Page, like yourself? Is that kind of scary?
Yeah, I think it's scary, but it's also kind of like, well, like,
What else
what do
are
you
we gonna
do, right? Like, it
Get
is
in a
what
time
it is,
machine
sort of
and buy a
thing.
19-cent loaf of bread.
Scary, but like, I think you kind of just have to deal with it,
Yeah,
right?
there's
Like,
no other choice.
No.
But you're looking.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think?
I haven't started looking yet, but like, I
It's
want
on
to
your
in the
radar.
next year or something.
Do you think,
Yeah.
like, when you talk to your mates, like, so how old are you and how much do you have in savings? No, don't answer the second
26, happy to be here.
one.
Man.
Happy to be here. Do so when you get together with your 26-year-old mates at Camden Valley Inn, where do you go? Give it a shout out. Where's the pub?
That's a good
Camden
spot.
Valley Inn,
It's
good
right
spot.
near my
They
spot.
do like 1 kilo steaks there. How
No,
much?
that's Gregory Hills
That's
Hotel.
Gregory Hills
because you
Hotel.
get the ads for that. For
I get
some-
the ads. I don't know. I drove past there once and I get served
You
ads
get
from
the
Gregory
ads.
Hills Hotel. When your 26-year-old mates get together at the pub, do you guys talk about property, or like, do you think, is there like, or do you guys like not even think it's a
I
thing?
feel like there's sort of two, like, even sort of from talking to people with Composite Street, I feel like there's two groups of people. There's either people that have just completely given up and they have no hope, so they don't even think about it. And then there's the people who see it and they're just doing what they can to get there, and they still see it as a potential option. So, like, I think there's a lot more people that have kind of given up on it, so they don't even think about it. They'd rather travel, stuff like that. And then, yeah, I've got a few mates that are thinking about it, but they're all people that work in the industry.
So
also
they're
when I
like
think
what,
about it,
real
yeah.
estate agents,
Real estate
or
agents and stuff like that.
like project managers and stuff
Yeah.
like that, or tradies.
Well, the tradies I know just like to get shit faced when they're not working, so they're not even really thinking about the property side of it. But yeah, I guess like people that, like, I know a few real estate agents, they're thinking about it because it's sort of,
What they do every day.
yeah.
I was talking to a guy yesterday. He's 46, and he said, because we were talking to him about Coposit, and he's like, "What a brilliant idea!" Yada yada yada. This episode brought to you by Coposit. Check us out, coposit.com.au, where you can buy property with 10K, by the way. We've got to talk to camera on that. But he said in his group of mates, so say there's like 10 guys, 3 of them own property.
Right.
And I think this is so we're talking about like, so maybe in like 1964, they had things like as tough as us in terms of like the cost of things, even though property was achievable, very achievable. You could buy a property with 2 years worth of income, right? So what they were doing is buying these properties at 23, 24 years old, right? So then they're set, right? So today, like, time does its thing, compounding does its thing, and these $4,000 properties are worth $1.2 million now.
Mm.
So they're able to, like, retire with the properties that they've purchased decades ago. So, but they were buying early. Whereas kids today, you're 26, Page, so you're older than that, but none of your mates own property. None of your mates are talking about property.
No, the only people that, like, sort of say that I went to school with that own properties had wealthy families that helped them get into it. So they're the only people that I know my age that have been able to do it.
I think there's going to be a
Everyone else
huge
hasn't.
issue in decades to come. Like, you're going to have, like, you talk about this 46-year-old guy and his mates. So guys in their 40s that are still trying to get in or now starting to think about it, but they haven't had those decades of compounding that, like, the boomers in 1964 are now like having.
Hmm.
Crazy. Shall we cut to that video? Let's prop talk. So this video, is this the one that had 6 million views, is it? On Composite Street.
6.2.
6.2 million views. Let's add to that by one. So what's this? Savings of men in their 20s. So these are like, this is your gen. These are your people. All right, let's go.
How old are you and how much do you have in savings?
I'm 28 and I have $40,000 in savings.
Not bad.
23, I've got about 60 grand in savings.
It's a bit
I'm
bit better.
24, and I have maybe 23 grand or so. I'm 26.
Okay.
I love this guy.
I don't want to brag.
I've got more than 100,000 in savings.
What do you reckon? Is that 101,000?
About 10k in savings. 29 and then savings 30,000 euro.
That's
How
not,
old
that's
are you and
60k.
how much do you have in savings?
Okay.
So, yeah.
So some of these got a bit of a range, like from
Yeah.
like 10k to like, I don't want to brag, but like over 100,000.
Over 100k.
Over 100,000 is okay. in
Yeah.
Savings. You
Yeah.
could probably put, what's that, 10% of, almost 10% of the average
Yep.
property in Sydney.
That's right.
So he's probably be looking at an apartment in Sydney if he wanted to buy something
Yeah.
today. What do you think of that? Is this pretty normal? Can these guys, I mean, from a mortgage broker perspective, these guys probably wouldn't be able to buy property.
Well, look, really comes down to their borrowing capacity and their income as well. I mean, like savings is one thing. I mean, you could buy a property with the government
Yeah,
support
true.
or the first
Yeah.
home guarantee where you only need a 5% deposit and you're not paying stamp duty.
Mm.
So if the property you're buying is 500 grand, like I know it's not the average house price, you only need 25 grand, right? So I think sometimes that's where, PJ, when you were talking about how some of the younger people are just switched off on the idea of buying property, it can be a bit of a pity because the fact that they're switched off, they're not looking into how
Yeah.
they can actually secure property. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to buy a property for 1.2 million bucks, especially if you're single by yourself. You know, there are still properties, if you check on realestate.com.au, in Sydney, units one bedroom, or even some places for 2 bedroom in certain suburbs and areas. But that's where there's that stigma. I don't want to live in that suburb, or that area doesn't have a good reputation. There are properties for under 500,000, or there are properties for 500 grand, and you only need a 25 grand deposit.
That's something that like I think is like a big issue too. Is like the media sort of narrative that gets pushed.
Yeah.
Is like, we know it's bad. We can see that it's bad out there, but
Yeah.
it makes it sound like it's impossible. And so
That's right.
the options aren't talked about.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly right. Especially the one that they pushed out recently around how it's going to take you to your 46 or something to save a deposit or blah, blah, blah. You buy your home when you're 60 or something like that. That's just really ridiculous. It's not true. It's not what's actually happening.
That's why a lot of first-time
Yeah.
buyers are probably looking outside of Sydney, not to live in, but to invest in. So
Well, I mean, that's another option. Like the whole investing interstate has always been around. Like, it's not
Yeah.
a new concept, but it's getting talked about a lot more because more people are choosing it, not because they're making a decision whether I want to buy a place to live in Sydney or should I invest in South Australia, but they're looking at where their money can get them the best return on investment.
yeah,
You
and
know?
I applaud it because
Yeah.
it goes back to what I was saying before. Like boomers in 1964, they could buy. They set themselves up early
Yeah.
and they let time do the work.
Yeah.
Whereas to do that in Sydney today, it's very difficult to be in your 20s buying in Sydney. So what do? You got to get in the market somehow
Yeah.
to let time do its work.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means an interstate investment. It means living at home for a bit longer. It means
Exactly.
et cetera, et cetera. So I guess what everyone's trying to do at the moment is save. And it's so hard to save $1 these days. Like, interest rates are up, cost of things have gone up, which we spoke about at length at the start of this episode. So we asked the people of Composite Street, or Pete, you guys asked on Composite Street for some savings hacks during a cost of living crisis. I'm going to read through some of the hacks, and I want to know what you guys think about them. So one of them is like set a rule, like no Uber Eats, like cook your own food. Is that something that you guys do? Like, will that work? Is that something you guys are doing more?
Well, like, you can't buy food around here for less than like around $20, right? Say 15 to 20 is like the range.
Are you talking about lunch? Like,
So-
you're buying lunch, yeah.
Yeah, so that like adds up over a week, right? Like that's a fair bit of cash. So now that I'm bringing food to work, or save a fair bit, like that's.
So
I
were
think
you
it
buying
puts a
lunch
dent
every
in it.
day?
At one point, yeah,
You're buying lunch every day, so it's like $100 a week.
yeah.
And now you make your meals, mostly. And you fast. That explains why you
Yeah, I'm
fast every
fasting.
Monday.
It's just because I just can't afford to eat.
to accelerate your savings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm trying to buy a
it's not
house, man.
It's not a health
No
thing.
time for eating.
It's I just don't want to spend that $20 today, and I'm too lazy to make my hand meal. I'm gonna
Yes.
fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I try and like probably get takeaway once a week out for lunch, right?
Yeah.
But you know, even Uber Eats, I don't use Uber Eats. I go and pick up the meal because I want to help. It's better for the small business as
Yeah.
well.
Mm.
It gets me out of the house for
Yeah,
5 minutes, which
that's
is
right.
fantastic.
And the food's
there's
more
less food.
fresh.
It's more fresh.
You actually
Yeah.
get it hot instead
Yeah,
of like,
yeah, exactly.
Another one that came in, I try and do this, is make your own coffee. And I see this, I see a lot of people say this, but then it's like, oh, I'm in two minds about it because you want to, like, it's $5 a day. Is that really going to make a difference at the end of the day? And is it worth like that little buzz, it's like my little treat for the day, that little $5 coffee in the morning, like.
That's an interesting one because that's something I've actually started, not necessarily to save $5 a day, but I just thought, because I think it comes down to how much of a coffee connoisseur you are, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're really into the coffee,
Yeah.
I reckon that's money worth spending.
Yeah.
Because you're sacrificing way too much making coffee at work, for example, right? But for me, like I'm okay. Like I enjoy a coffee from the cafe for $6, but if I'm making something in the office with the instant coffee, I'll warm up the milk type of thing. It's all right, So I've been doing that. Like I don't really know why, because I'm not saving up to buy a house or anything. But I do feel the pinch that it's $6 every time, and sometimes you get 2 coffees a day, or for some people even 3.
That's the thing. It's the multiple
Yeah,
coffees.
and it's
If
just
you're-
crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, because I always started to make my coffee at home. So
Yeah.
I use a little cafetera you put on
Yeah.
the stove. And so I do that, and it's like, okay, I save my $5-6 in
Yeah.
the morning. But then what I was doing is getting to work, then also buying a coffee.
Yeah.
And then Jason's like, oh, hey, let's go grab a coffee.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. Because what I think people can do that'll be more fun is that every time you don't buy a coffee, you put that $5 away somewhere.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's mad.
I'm doing that.
That's
so if
mad.
I don't, it becomes this little,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the treat of the coffee.
Yeah.
And I still most days buy the coffee. But on the
Oh.
days that I don't.
Yeah. So how are you doing that
No,
then?
but on the days that I don't, it's like, okay, that $5, let's put it towards something.
Yeah, yeah. But do you put it away, or do you mentally say I got $5 to spend? Like, do you
Does that
actually
go on
take
the
a
coffee
note?
fund?
Do you take it?
I make a note.
Yeah.
And I put $5.
Yeah.
Towards ground coffee for not really, but I put $5 somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Like the physical cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
mad. Like,
Yeah.
because that's like
Yeah.
the oldest
Yeah.
savings hack, right?
Yeah.
Is just to actually put that money
Yeah.
somewhere. And I think that's really motivating because when you look at it, there's like $200-300 there.
Yeah.
That's
You're
a
like,
lot.
this is mad.
I haven't got to 200-300 yet.
Yeah,
I've got to say,
yeah.
it's
well, because you said almost
I mostly
most
buy-
days you buy.
No, but
There's $5 sitting there. There's
it is
like, yeah.
it is incredible. Like, but it's a good hack. It's incredibly slow. Like you're
Yeah.
not gonna. It's not a deposit like
Yeah.
the $5 a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
But there is like this little It's like that reward system.
It is. It is.
Like coffee's a reward. Right?
Yeah.
But if you then like, oh yeah, I saved $5. Oh yeah, now that's $20. Now that's $50. The reward, you're treating yourself to that.
Yeah,
little
look,
reward.
absolutely. And I think you're gamifying the process.
Yeah.
And like if you can teach your kids that, it can become really fun for them and create, money conscious habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Is there anything else like that you do at home with your kids, or? Sorry, I put you on the spot here.
That we do with the kids. Yeah, so we don't reward them for housework, but we do reward them, if they get all their homework right. So the extra homework that they do at home, like when they go through these exercise books, and if they get them all right, they get a star. If they get like 5 stars, they get $5, and that $5 goes into like their bank account. And then when they want to use it, they can use it for whatever they want. They don't have to ask for permission and stuff like that. As long as it's not illegal, they can use it.
One of the parents at my son's soccer team,
Yeah.
they give him $5 a goal.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, it
That's pretty
turns
good.
out he's the best player in the team. He scores a lot of goals.
Oh, right.
My brother does that with my niece.
Yeah.
If she
So
scores
he's-
a goal, she gets
He's-
$5 or something.
Well, he's scoring like 8 goals in a game.
Oh, okay.
And I'll go to him, I go, mate, I won't say his name on the show, but I go, bro, like, you're going to be broke with this kid. He scores a lot of goals. And he goes, yeah, we had to change the system. So it's $5, 5 points but it goes. They got like a point system at home where if they're naughty, they remove
Yeah.
points. So he goes, we just bank on him being quite naughty, and
Yeah.
we're removing points during the week. So it
Yeah,
doesn't-
right.
Yeah, it's
right.
cra-
Just
it's crazy.
introducing hurdles. It sounds like the corporate incentive system.
Yeah.
Like if you're overachieving, let us
Yeah,
put in some
let's put in
hurdles
a hurdle.
so
Yeah.
we can pull you back.
100%.
Yeah.
But I like this gamifying. Like, let's gamify.
Yeah.
Let's treat yourself.
Yeah.
Make it a
That's
habit.
fun. That's
Like,
right.
So instead of the coffee, put it towards something else.
Yeah.
That's mad. Some other people said work harder, make more money. I mean, is that? Are we talking about side hustles? Do people need to start?
Oh look, I
working
do.
more?
I do think on socials you see that, right? Where these life coaches or whatever, or people who think that they can impart a lot of wisdom to other people will say to you, "Oh look, get a side hustle, work harder, work on yourself, and all that stuff." But sometimes it's not as practical. It's really easy to just say go earn more money, but everyone's situation is different, man. Like. Maybe you can't work a second job because you have care and responsibilities. Who knows, right? But I think if you simplify it too much, you can make people feel inadequate. Oh wow, it's such a simple solution, but I can't do it.
Depends what you do, man.
Yeah.
Too. Like if your main job is kind of like more, I will say more mindless. Like it's more like you don't need to think too much, and then you go home and you do something where you're thinking. And you're, like maybe you can, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like hours fluctuate. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Go home. You got a family.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think
sometimes
it's good when you're younger, right? When
Yeah.
you don't have those responsibilities. Like we've got several customers in their 20s who work a full-time job, and they work at Office Works on Saturdays,
Yeah.
and sometimes both days. If they have the time and they get called in,
Yeah.
that's what they do, right? So are they necessarily saving for something? And these are clients that have already bought a property and they're in their late 20s. They're not saving for a particular goal, but that's just their thing, right? That they got time. I'm not doing anything else. I find the job quite cruisy. Then I'll just go in on Saturday, and sometimes Saturday and Sunday.
Sometimes
Yeah.
committing to the property forces you to do
Oh, for
things
sure,
like that
for
as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
So you go, I think back to my younger self when I was closer to your age, Pete, buying my first property. And like I'd go out every Saturday night, every Sunday night, whatever, you're going out, you're buying drinks, whatever, you're having fun. And then you buy your property and you're like, oh, maybe I won't go out this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't go out every weekend. And looking back, like I don't regret. I could have went out half as much as I did, and I wouldn't regret it. Right? I had great times, great friends, but you don't remember every night specifically.
Oh, for
Like,
sure,
I
for
wouldn't
sure.
think I missed out on anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas back then,
That's
you probably
right.
think, oh no, it's a bit of FOMO. Like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
miss out on it if I don't.
Definitely.
If I'm not at the Gregory Hills Hotel in Filo Steak. But
Yeah.
I think but if you don't have the commitment, you go, whatever, I'm going to go out.
Yeah,
But if you have all of a sudden you got your mortgage and your whatever,
yeah.
maybe I won't go out tonight.
Well, that comment about the forced saving plan is really interesting, because when you have a home loan and your repayments are principal and interest, that principal part of your repayment is actually forced saving. Because really, interest is the cost of having that loan, right? So the bank lends you the money, you pay interest, but you got to pay principal back as well.
Yeah,
But that's actually paying off the loan and owning more of the property. So that's actually already forcing you to save by making the repayment, right? So anything in addition that you pay is even better, right? So I think that's why it's important for young people to actually, go buy a property, because that'll naturally force you just to meet the repayments of the loan, be saving, $400 or $500 a month or whatever that is on top of the interest that you pay.
Do you recommend paying more than that, or is like
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Always?
Because always,
What if
when
it's like
you can.
investment property, or like is it different thinking if it's an investment versus?
Oh,
your
it is
principal
different
place?
thinking if you have a home loan for your owner-occupied home and you have an investment loan. And the reasoning behind that is the investment loan is tax deductible. So it means every dollar of interest you get charged on the investment loan, you can claim a portion of that back from the government because of negative gearing. Whereas every dollar of interest you get charged on your home loan, you don't claim anything. So you want to minimize the repayments on your investment loan. You could look at interest only. So you could have extra $300-$400 left over from here to put into your home loan, right? So you always want to pay off your non-tax deductible debt first. Yeah, but I always recommend paying early. Like the power of being able to pay an extra $50 a week, $100 a week, $200 a week is unbelievable, right? But because it's so incremental, it's kind of like you go into the gym and it's the 1%ers. You don't see the effect of paying $100 a week extra immediately. But
Yeah.
if you've been going to the gym for 3, 4, 5 years, or you've been paying that $100 a week for 5 years, you will realize that you've saved, $50, $60, $70,000 worth of interest, as an example. Right? Like, that's so much money that you've saved just by paying an extra $100 a week.
I noticed on the bank app, it'll say like how long you have left on your term.
Yeah.
But based on your repayments currently,
That's right.
this is how much will
Yeah.
actually be left.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool too,
It is.
gamifying it in that way.
Correct. But I think people tend to not do that and just see that, oh, that's the minimum repayment, because the other danger with it is when they're working out their borrowing capacity, how much they want, they need to borrow for their loan, they look at what's the maximum I can borrow. It probably should be what's the maximum you can afford to pay, and you borrow less than that so you can pay it off over 15 years, right? Because the loan's 30 years, but it doesn't mean it takes you 30 years to pay it off, right? Why not look at, hey, Jason, what's the repayment if that loan was 15 years? Well, the repayments jumped up by 30%. Can you do that? Great, I'll get that loan amount. But then it comes down to, is that going to get you the property that you want to live in and all that kind of stuff?
We're going to do a deep dive just
Right.
with Jason on this stuff. We're going to do like a mortgage broker, like inside the mind of a
Yeah,
mortgage
yeah.
broker. That's the title. That's gonna be. Let's schedule that one in there. We'll get a few mortgage brokers, see if they all agree. If we're all friends. What else? There's a few other things. People talk about, live below your means. Find cheaper rent. It's hard though. Maybe is it like moving back home if you have an opportunity to. We've done that before. Someone suggested like going to prison. You get all your meals and your accommodation
mad.
for free. So that's probably a good one, Paige. I don't know if that's something you want to consider. Some people said if you study, work as well. I think this goes back to what you were saying before. Like if
Yeah.
you're going to study, like even if you're living at home, don't have many expenses, like work at Office Works on the weekend, get the Woolies job.
Yeah,
Or
that's right.
Get a job in the career that you want to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that. I think that's pretty good. There's one. This is twofold. This one. So some people said things like get yourself a rich husband, which I don't know about. I don't know about that because on the other side of the fence, a lot of other people said don't spend on girlfriends. So you've got.
Yeah, well, you do save a lot when you're single, though.
I've heard, this is a bit silly, but I've heard like guys not wanting to go on dates as much because, they got to, like, they want to do the gentlemanly thing and pay for the date.
Yeah,
And then
makes sense.
And I think a lot of people go Dutch these days, like they'll go half. But then I've heard of like people like women going on more dates, like trying to go on a date every night, so they get.
I've heard of
they
this.
get the free
Yeah,
meal.
I remember hearing this thing. I can't remember if it was on TikTok or something. There was this lady who had gone on like, she'd basically never paid for dinner for like a year or something because she'd just gone on dates like constantly, so she didn't have to ever buy her own food.
But I don't know. I haven't. Like my dating life is pre like app Tinder and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do people like go halves these days, or is it like?
It depends on
is
the
it still
person.
like
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, like
See, ladies,
Because I
don't
think
like
the
that.
females all offer,
Yep.
but it's usually the guys will say, I'll pay
Is that
for
how
it.
it
like
works?
a lot of the girls
Yeah.
will offer, but they're saying they're testing you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Well, I think a lot of like women, if they offered to pay and you accepted it, they wouldn't like
They
that.
wouldn't go on a.
but
second
it probably
date.
depends on the quality of the date. Because in
That's
the
the
end,
thing
you make
too.
an assessment whether you want to
Yeah,
pay
yeah,
for the
yeah,
deal
yeah,
or
yeah.
You
not.
know what? Nah, it was a shit
Yeah,
date.
right. So
Let's go
if you
halves.
don't really care what she thinks of you afterwards, or he thinks of you, then
You just look at them.
yeah, you're like,
when
yeah.
the bill comes, you just kind of
And
look
then
at
you
them
go,
like,
I had 2 chips out of that dish. That's my drink. That's your drink.
yeah.
Split it by chips. That's fascinating. Any other tips? Like this is all the stuff. Have you seen anything else out on Composite Street that you're hearing that's like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. I might try and do that.
Not that it's kind of the opposite. It's what people are not doing. Like I think most people just don't set goals. Like they don't have a thing they're working towards. So like, you have people that are talking about like they can't save. It's impossible to save. It's like, well, it is possible if you're not prioritizing traveling or going like doing all of this other stuff. It's like if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but don't say that it's impossible to save money because you could just choose to do other
You can
things.
make sacrifices.
Yeah, and
I
people
think-
don't like doing that now.
I think the goal's important too because if
Yeah.
it's like we said, if you've bought the house, if you're in the market, all of a sudden you need to assess all of your spending. If you have a goal, then you go, okay, we've got a holiday coming up. Should we do that? or do we maybe give that a miss this year so we can achieve our goal this year, and then we'll go on the holiday next year, for example, right? Do I go to Aldi instead of Woolies? I don't know. Aldi's meant to be cheaper. I don't know if it actually is, but I don't know. There's a whole heap of things. Do I not buy that coffee today? Do I make the coffee and put that $5, put that $6, somewhere else? TAB. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Interesting stuff, guys.
Yeah.
I hope we've helped, helped me with a few things, because, man, this cost of living stuff, I mean, everyone's talking about recessions. Like, it's pretty crazy. So I hope we've helped some people with some ideas. If you've got ideas as well yourself and you're listening along or you're watching along, leave comments. We'll chuck this on, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, leave some comments in our socials as well. How are you saving in a cost of living crisis? And I think this is an awesome chat, guys.
Great.
Love the Price is Right stuff. At the start.
That was good.
Yeah. See you guys next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Maybe not you next week.
Maybe not me. Fuck. Way to tell me I didn't make the cut.
That was quick. Whoa.
The Property Now podcast offers opinions on Australian property news for informational and entertainment purposes only, and they are general in nature. It does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. It does not constitute professional advice. Always seek expert guidance before making any property-related decisions.